Gilberto Ramirez successfully defended his WBO Super Middleweight Championship by a 6 round technical knockout over Habib Ahmed in a pretty one-sided fight. Ahmed, at the very least, he was showing some heart, showing some grit, trying to fire back, and he did appear to bother Ramirez at the very least. But for the first, I'd say, like round and a half, with some of those right hands that he was kind of loading up on. Perfect shot to try and fight a southpaw with, and also the fact that Ramirez he kind of hunches over a little bit. He gives away a little bit of his height and reach oftentimes. Although I don't think his arms are particularly long. He seems to have kind of short arms actually for his height, as it were. But he hunches over as well, so that kind of gives away a little bit more. But just the volume of Ramirez is really the name of the game. That's pretty much the way that he's managed to stay undefeated thus far. It's just the fact that he's such a high volume fighter for being a super middleweight, as well as the fact that he carries a decent level of power on his shots, even though he's not necessarily sitting down on any one shot, especially hard. Like he doesn't necessarily have that bite down look to him, where it's like he's biting down and boom, he's throwing this one particular shot or setting up this one particular shot with everything that he has. It's really just flurries and combinations, and everything is relatively ham-fisted. So when he lands, and when he lands cleanly, he's doing serious damage, as you could see several times in this fight with Ahmed. Yeah, and so it was just basically a matter of time. Each round that passed was just a rising tide of Ramirez. He's somewhat of a slow starter that just kind of starts getting up and up and up, and after a couple of rounds, he gets into a nice rhythm, lets those combinations flow, and it's just an oncoming tide. And it's really just about, can you deal with it? Can you dissuade him from doing it, and or can you get him out of his rhythm, and be able to set up some good shots and some good point scoring blows of your own, or damaging blows of your own. And unfortunately for Ahmed, he just wasn't up to the task. He's fighting in a style that's not unlike it's very reminiscent of Hassan and Dom, actually. Kind of awkward and kind of wide stance. He'll kind of throw these weird lunging shots, looping shots, and Ramirez is just tagging him, catching him on the inside of a lot of those looping shots, and just beat him down, and took him out basically. It wasn't an overly eventful fight. After the fight, he was saying that he wanted that. So I guess supposedly Bob Arum promised him the winner of the World Boxing Super Series Super Middleweight tournament, which I think would be a fantastic fight. The World Boxing Super Series, as I mentioned in the cruiserweight video that I just uploaded as well, is I think it's almost like a service to boxing fans. It's like what fight fans have been wanting for years and years, if not like decades. They've been going all the way back to when Don King had the heavyweight tournament and the middleweight tournaments back in the day at differing points. The tournaments are good for boxing. The the Showtime bantamweight tournament, the Showtime Super 6 Super middleweight tournament. Tournaments are good, man. The eventual winners of these things come out, with good records, good legacies, and good achievements under their belts by and large, when they're set up in the way that they're set up. So the winner of the super middleweight tournament, whoever it happens to be, I think is a great opponent for Ramirez. The WBC champ David Benavidez is a guy that I think a lot of people would like to see. An all Mexican showdown, or at the very least, Mexican national versus Mexican American showdown. I guess it'd be the first one in a little while, probably since Juan Manuel Marquez and Juan Diaz, actually. Which was a great fight, their first fight. The second fight wasn't as great. Juan Diaz was playing a little bit more defensive, and Marquez was able to take control the whole time. Or even going all the way back to Michael Carbajal versus Berto Chiquita Gonzalez, which itself was another great showdown between fighters of those backgrounds. I think that's a great fight. I think the way that their styles mesh actually would make for a really, really good fight, considering the fact that Ramirez is a little bit more of a kind of a flurry and move type fighter, whereas Benavidez is kind of a stand and deliver kind of power punching / flurrying type fighter. Really, really, really good style matchup there. Otherwise, you got the likes of Caleb Truax. You got the upcoming winner potentially of Andre Durrell versus Jose Uzcategui, part 2. Whoever wins that, I think, would be a great opponent for him. Jesse Hart's out there again. I think Ramirez would beat Hart again, ultimately. But the guys in the WBO that are there, nobody quite lights the world on fire as much as the guys I already named. The guys in the World Boxing Super Series, between Eubank, Groves, Callum Smith, the likes of Truax, etc. The one guy that I noticed that is in the WBO rankings is Vijender Singh. Vijender Singh of India, very accomplished amateur. Hasn't looked so good as a pro, but he brings in pretty good money, really high ratings over in India and everything. He appeared on a couple of Box Nation cards, both in the UK and as well as in India. They had it like remote broadcasting basically. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ramirez and Bob Arum thought like, hey, let's take the money and run. Let's go over to India or wherever they happen to actually hold the fight. It'd be it'd be a big deal out in that part of the world, and it'd probably be a lot of money. For a pretty easy fight. Frankly, I think Ramirez would beat Singh pretty much the same way they just did against Ahmed. Possibly easier. Singh has shown himself to be a bit chinny and one of those fighters that really seemed to flourish under the old style kind of AIBA amateur rules, where it's kind of he would just like hit you with a quick like shot or a quick 1-2, and then either grab you or like kind of run across the ring. He was a relatively quick guy, but where if you were able to hit him on the cheek or on the top of the head or anything like that, like that headgear and the gloves, the heavier, more thickly padded gloves of the amateurs would help him. It would help him quite a bit. As a pro, he hasn't quite looked so durable. So I think he was one of those fighters that kind of flourished under the old amateur freeze tag rules, as I like to sometimes call them. But for what it's worth, Ramirez has some reasonably good options ahead of him. I'm just not sure how likely they are all for his next fight, his immediate next fight. But potentially before the end of the year, I think we may see a really good fight with Ramirez and one of the guys that I already mentioned. So I think that's going to do it for this one, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.